It is almost 2025, which means it is time for me to create a new 2025 sheet in my reading spreadsheet. I absolutely love my behemoth of a reading spreadsheet. I've done quite a few videos on it, but today I'm going to give you an updated tour of what my reading spreadsheet looks like going into 2025. Okay, here is an updated end of 2024 going into 2025 reading spreadsheet tour. First of all, here is my new reading log. As you can see from 2024, this is what it will look like when I have filled out all of the books that I read throughout each month. So I am doing it a little bit differently this time, in which I'm just keeping all of the months at the bottom so I don't have to do too much shuffling around. But as you can see, I have the number of books, the title, the author, rating. I'm doing new this year. I'm actually including quarter stars. That's new for me. I usually just do full and half. And then I have ways of how I read the books, if it's a reread or not. And I redid my genres for this year. I'm so excited. They just feel a lot more me, a lot more niche down, and I think it'll just give me a better idea of what I'm reading. I've added some new supernatural elements in there, as well as quite a few romance tropes. The spice levels are the same as last year, and so are the tropes. This is generally just where I write in specific things that happened, or just notes about what happens in the book so I remember. This is whether or not I cried. This is if it's queer, if it's a BIPOC author, and now new, I'm gonna write in the exact page numbers, because before I just had this and I like being a bit more specific, and I have all of the information about the imprints and the publishers. Over on our overall, something new for me this year is I am writing down, I used to just have the number of books for each month, but I'm now including the number of pages in these books, the number of books read for fan fiction, I do calculate that, and the number of pages, I do calculate that as well. So now I will get a much clearer overall picture of how many actual books I've read in total between books and fan fiction, and the number of pages. So as you can see, I just put in some numbers in here so this graph would show up. I am now also going to track the number of star ratings I give for each number of ratings, and that will be shown here on this graph once things start popping in. How I read everything, and then overall, if it's a physical, audio, or online, how many of them are first reads and how many of them are rereads, and then how many I have read of each of my new genres. And each of these graphs correlate to these things that I'm tracking. I also have them set up so that there are formulas, so that when I put in a, let's for example come over here to genres, once I go in and I have a nonfiction in there, it will pop up as nonfiction. So something new for me this year is things that are manual or automatic. I don't have to go in and change these manually anymore. That is new for me, and I'm so excited. I did redo this sheet from scratch so that I could put in these formulas, and I'm so happy with the way they turned out. Next, I have yet to create a challenges sheet for 2025, but this is what it's going to look like anyway. I have every letter challenges, every letter for book titles and author last names. I have read a book by an author from 15 countries. Clearly, I did not do well on that in 2024. I will do better in 2025. I want to hit every single continent in particular. This is Read the Rainbow and 'Tis the Season. So I will create a new spreadsheet for this going into 2025. This is a list of ongoing 5- and 4-star ratings. So as you can see, it starts in 2021 when I started writing down my star ratings for books, and it goes all the way up until the end of 2024. So I will be adding 2025 once we reach the end of the year. Similar, I have this for fan fiction. And then I have an entire sheet just dedicated to fan fiction. So this is all, of course, very long ago. So this is all the fan fiction I read in 2021 when I started tracking it. And now we go down to a bit more modern, which you can see the number that I read that year, the title, the author with a link to their work, the star rating. I know you're not really supposed to rate fan fictions, but I do it so I know which ones I want to go back and reread. The links to those fics, if I've reread it or not, the fandom, the ship, clearly I'm a Hermione girly, the type of romance has all of the same tropes as before. If there's some spice, the tropes information, if I cried or not, clearly you can see something got me to cry up there. If it's queer, and then the word counts, both with the overall general kinds of word counts and then the particulars, so that I can now calculate it. Something that's new for me this year I'm so excited for is my Read the World Challenge. I want to read every single US state and every single country around the world. So I did go through and I wrote down every single US state, and then I have spaces for whether a book takes place there or if there's the author from there. And whatever it is, I will write down the star rating, and that will populate into the map itself. The darker the color, that means the higher the star rating it was. So I really, really liked my Maryland, Alaska, California, Arizona, that kind of area. This is an overall world map. As you can see, I have not read very much outside of my sphere. And then I went through and I cross-checked many world country lists, because some people rate countries as real or not. So it took me a while to go through these. But these are all the countries in the world. And I also have particular continent maps, which will also auto-populate based off the rankings. So I have Africa, Asia, Europe, Oceania, North America, and South America, and they're all different colors. I really love this spreadsheet. Next, I have tropes. This is also a new one to me. These are the genres that we're most likely going to be in here. And this is so that if somebody's like, oh, do you have any good books that where the main characters don't want kids? Yeah, these two. So this is a way for me to kind of figure out at a glance which books are second chance, which ones, you know, have like training montages or something like that. Something that will hopefully make giving recommendations a lot easier. Next, I have content. This is also something new to me. This is for me sharing about my books and my reading on socials. So this is going to be if I've done it or not, the book, the author, the genre, the rating I gave it. Obviously up here is only going to be 3.5, usually 4 or 5 stars. The spice level, if it's a series or not, if I own it, this is where I'm going to paste in any reviews that I put. Like all these are obviously on Goodreads. So if I have them already written down, I'm just going to paste them in there. These are the tropes that are in it. And then if I have made a book talk video for it, if I have made a Canva post, that is going to be a, hopefully I post them pretty soon on my Bookstagram, but there's like a Canva post in which it has like, you know, brother's best friend and an arrow pointing to the book, you know, stuff like that. I want to make those. So if I've made that post or not, and if I've posted that on Bookstagram. Next, I have my big books owned spreadsheet. This is one of my favorite sheets of this whole thing. As you can see in here, it has the title, the author, if it's a paperback, mass paperback, softcover, hardback, the imprint, the publisher, imprints, lots and lots of imprints, the publishers, when and how I acquired it, so I have it by month, and then all the ways I get books, if it's a special edition, if it's signed, if I've read it or not, if it's a series, and the genre. And over here, up at the top, you can see that I'm starting to track exactly what I have. So these also auto-populate every time I add in a new fairy tale mythology. This number will go up, and so will this graph. So you can clearly see that I'm a big fantasy, historical romance, and young adults, and romance, young adult, fantasy, and contemporary romance girly. So that's a vast majority of what I own. So I have a lot of fairy tales and mythologies. This auto tracks from the red, so every time I check it goes up and down. This is an abysmal reading rate right now. That is why I have my physical TBR series. So currently I've read 23.8% of the books I own. It's so bad. 61% of my books are parts of series. That's an interesting number. Also, I have mostly paperback. These are all the imprints. Clearly I have a lot of independent, a lot of Disney Hyperion. And the publishers, I have a lot of Penguin Random House, HarperCollins, and whatnot. This is my how acquired list. It changes over time, so it's really interesting to see. My Little Free Library books used to be 1/3 of all the books I owned, so it's really interesting to see how much these things change over time. This is, I need to figure out a better way to display this, but this is a graph of when I got the books. It's not in order and it's bothering me. And then this is me over time figuring out how many, so this was the genres I used to have, and how many books there were in that genre and how many I had read, and then, so the percentage. So nonfiction, 2 of the 3, I was in the green because I read 66% of it. So a little bit further down is a bit more of an updated. This is when I added my new genres in back in August, and so this is a lot more indicative of what my genre reading looks like. I, at that point, had read exactly half of all the contemporary romances I owned, but had read 0% of the memoir and biographies I had owned, and 29% of the classics and whatnot. So I think once or twice a year I'm going to go in and copy this and see my new percentages, because if I keep going through, I'd love to see how many I can get into the green. Next is also something that's new for me. This is a series tracker. I added this as its own video on my channel, but this is an overall, a quick overall for me to see what series I'm reading and what's on my radar. So for example, We'll scroll down a little bit to things I've been reading kind of recently. You can see that some of these books have author names, series, whether it's ongoing or completed, or if I stopped reading it. The number of books that are in here, I input this manually and I input this manually for how many I read. This is a formula. It subtracts, there's 4 books in this series. I've read one of them. So unread is 3. 25% done, and this auto-populates. This is a bar graph, so you can see 100% it's fully filled in. Up to date means if I've read all of the books that are currently out. So some of these, like Cash, for example, I have read all the books that are currently out because these next ones are not available yet. Oh, that reminds me, this needs to be updated. Oh, because there are 5 books in this series, which means you can see how this happens in real time. That changed right to 4, and now we're down to 20%, but it's still up to date. Here you can see all of the books. I have book 1, book 2, book 3, all the way to like 25. And these colors all mean different things. So each of the colors, if it's highlighted, that means I read it in a specific year. If it's gray, that means it is not yet published. And if it's white, that means that I have not read it yet, but it is out in the world. If it's underlined, that means I own it. And if it's italicized, that means I've reread it since then. So you can see up here my colors. Read before 2022 is green, read in 2022 is this, and then we get different colors. So right now we're in this light blue, and starting in 2025 we'll have this really pretty purple. So I love to see, for example, reading series over years versus reading all of the books in a certain year. I think it's a really cool way to see my series. Next, I have author tracker. This is because I'm crazy and love to read everything in an author's backlist. And it also helps me figure out the order in which to read books. Like, for example, 2025, I really want to read Brandon Sanderson, and so this is all my notes of all the books he's ever published in order, so I can go through and just read them all. There are, sometimes I will put in and be like, how do I read these? You know, I own these ones, I can find these ones on Libby. So this is just a way for me to see, hey, I want to, you know, keep reading my Julia London books or my Sabrina Jeffries books, like what's next. The next 2 sheets are for upcoming bookish events, Once Upon a Con and the Imaginarium authors. So for here, I have the author name. I did this for Once Upon a Con, I have not done it for the others, but I went through and I found all their Instagram and their TikToks, their main genres. Here I only did 2. The main series that they're promoting, and it links the books to the Goodreads, if I own it, if I read it, and where I can find them. So this is so that before I go to the conventions, I can read some of the authors so I can see whether I want to buy their books in real life or not. The genres in particular here will really help me, whether I'm, you know, wanting a YA fantasy, if I want to do urban fantasy or paranormal. This was just really at a glance help me prioritize who I want to read. And then all the other sheets back here are my templates and then my past years. So I started my challenges back in 2023, but here are the books I had for 2022 and 2021. And I love going back and seeing the statistics for each of these. You can see I had a really big reading summer. You can see that I read quite a lot of audiobooks in last year. You can see I read a ton of romance last year. Last year was a very heavy romance one. A lot of them had no supernatural. So these are things that I will do at the end of each year. I'm really looking forward to what my graphs will look like at the end of 2024 because I read not so widely this year, but definitely more widely than 2023. Clearly this was the year of the soulmates for me. But just going through, I mean, I love to see all of these graphs. I am such a nerd when it comes to my reading spreadsheet. I am in here literally every single day, and I mean every single day, adding in books, thinking of new things to add, updating things, figuring out new formulas, looking at past books, figuring out what content I want to plan. I'm in this thing every single day. So I would love to hear from you if you have any ideas of how to make this better, what you would add, what your reading spreadsheet looks like if you have one, what else you love in yours, what you like tracking. This is what I like tracking, but of course things change over time. You can see the difference between 2024 to 2025. I'm so looking forward to using this new spreadsheet. If you like this reading spreadsheet, I actually have 2 versions for you available that you can get at any time. One of them is this older 2024 spreadsheet. It does not have the read the world, the tropes, the content, or any of my new sheets, but you can get that for free. If you would like this new spreadsheet that has all these formulas and all of these newer sheets, you are welcome to purchase that at the link down in the description. That would be really helpful for me just to know that you guys like them and you like my content. It's just a really nice way to support me and to kind of help me get back all of the thousands of hours I put into the spreadsheet. I hope you like this updated tour. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.